Hi everyone, welcome to another video on Isha's Adventures. Today we are journeying from Lake Atitlan, which is where I ended my last video, to the town just south of Lake Atitlan called Antigua. So this video is going to be about the main vegan places that I went to and where I ate most of my food. Again, I have a little list here, that's why I'm looking down. So there are 5 places that I ate most of my meals, and I'm going to shout out those places today. And also tell a kind of funny story about somebody I met in Antigua. So I took a boat from San Pedro to Panajachel, and then a bus from Panajachel to Antigua. Antigua, actually, like the word antique, Antigua means old, and so Antigua is the old capital of Guatemala. So it used to be the capital. Now the capital in Guatemala is Guatemala City, which is slightly east of Antigua. Antigua is super pretty. It's a really old colonial city, so there's a lot of Spanish influence, of course. Again, a little bit of an awkward undertone through all of my sort of Latin American travel is this influence of Spain, and what the Spanish did 500 years ago there when they colonized it, stripping away a lot of cultural depth from the Mayans and also the Incas further south. But that's a topic for another video. I'd just like to focus on the positives and all the wonderful things about Antigua. Antigua is really aesthetically pleasing. Again, I love photography, as you guys know. So for photographers, Antigua is a wonderful place, and I will show you some of the photos that I took there. Also, interestingly, you can see mountains all around Antigua as you're walking around, and you're not allowed to build a place that is more than 1 story in Antigua, so you can see a view wherever you are. I met up with a few couch surfing people from Antigua who told me lots of history and stories about Antigua. They told me that you can't build more than 2 stories high because it would impede the view, which is quite a nice rule actually to put in place. Because in some places, for instance, in Panajachel, when I went to that national park, there was this awesome nature reserve. I was walking around and I got to this main viewpoint of the lake, and there was this real eyesore of a hotel right there in the middle of the view. So that sort of thing just wouldn't be allowed to happen in Antigua because of those rules, which is good. I fully support that rule. It made for a really pretty city. Okay, on to the places that I ate my food at. My favorite place by far to eat my food, not only because the food there was really good, but also because it was always quite quiet. So I would just go in there and watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine and just hang out by myself or read a book. And it's called Wacuma. Wacuma, it's kind of, the specialty there is that they put sauerkraut on everything. So there are these bowls that they do with some kind of protein like tempeh or tofu, and then some vegetables and a nice sauce like a peanut sauce or a teriyaki sauce or something like that, on a bed of rice or noodles or something like that, or quinoa, and sauerkraut on top. Now, sauerkraut is really healthy for you because it has prebiotics. Why is sauerkraut healthy? Something about it being fermented. Provides probiotics and vitamin K2. So just generally, if you've got digestive problems or things like that, fermented foods are really good for you. So I used to eat there, I want to say nearly every day actually, in Wacuma. Highly recommend that restaurant. The owner's really nice there as well. Okay, next I have Samsara. Samsara is a restaurant very similar to Wacuma. I think they're linked because their menus are actually very similar. But Samsara is a bit bigger, a bit more busy, and it's closer to the center of Antigua. Again, they have the sauerkraut and really good flavors in their food. So I would recommend Samsara. Samsara, though, as far as the name goes, I noticed again, like I mentioned in Lake Atitlan, this idea that Westerners are coming in and bringing spirituality from India to Guatemala, where they already have a history of spirituality through the Mayans. Guatemala is the heart of the Mayan Empire, and so, or was, I should say, the heart of the Mayan Empire. So there is already a rich bed of spirituality in Guatemala. So I personally didn't understand why Westerners felt the need to kind of bring spirituality from India, like yoga and this, I mean, the word samsara is a Sanskrit word. I'm just going to quickly Google what it means again. The idea of rebirth. So samsara is linked to Hinduism and Buddhism and yoga, and this restaurant in Antigua in Guatemala is called Samsara. It's a dilemma for me as a vegan, because often these vegan places are owned by Westerners. They do have amazing food, but then I also wonder about, you know, who am I funding here? I'm in Guatemala, but I'm spending money in a place that's owned by a Westerner. So I do have a bit of a moral dilemma with that. Samsara did have really good food. I would recommend it just because their vegan menu is amazing. Okay, third on the list is a place called Onse. Onse is one of those award-winning places. Like on Happy Cow, the app that I use to find vegan places when I travel, Onse has a little award, has a little medallion on it, which means that it's somehow been voted for as a really good restaurant. And Onse is a bit pricey as well, so bear that in mind. It's good for like a treat or a romantic meal out or something like that. I would highly recommend them. They have a really good mac and cheese, so if you like, it's very hard to find a good vegan mac and cheese, so recommend that. It's a really good restaurant, very nice atmosphere, fine dining kind of atmosphere. Okay, fourth on the list, I have a place called La Bruja. Again, this was one of those award-winning places, and La Bruja really has outstanding reviews across the board. I had a seitan wrap thing. It was delicious. If I had more time in Antigua, I would have gone to La Bruja more often. La Bruja, like Onse, is also on the pricier side. The fifth on my list of places to eat in Antigua is actually the market. So one thing I really miss since being vegan, my choice of where I eat has been limited slightly. So I tend to seek out vegan restaurants just because I get the best nutritional value for my meal. But back in the day when I used to just backpack on a shoestring budget and was just wandering around Africa and Asia, and I wasn't vegan yet, I used to eat anything, you know, just go to street stalls or, you know, just small locally owned restaurants or, you know, really rustic eating. And I really missed that. So one time, me and this friend of mine who I met while traveling, we went to the market and we just had the really cheap market food that you get in Antigua, which consisted of rice, this squash, some beans, and a corn on the cob. So really, you know, cheap and cheerful. It was maybe $2 for a meal. So again, for those people who are wondering how much you need to spend while traveling, the range is massive. You can go to places like Onse, which is like $15-20 a meal, or you can go to the local market and eat for $2. The choice is yours. I do get that often when people say, how do you manage to travel so much? You know, you must be rich. When I went traveling the first time, I was living off a really small budget and still managed to make it work through couch surfing, through eating at markets, through taking local buses. If you travel like that, it tends to be very, very cheap. Yeah, I think that is everything. I'm going to leave it there for today, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next segment of the Vegan in Guatemala series. Bye.